right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Noelle and Carlos. Hey, Noelle, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Carlos. How are you today?
I'm doing well, but where are you?
I am in the hospital today, so I have a little bit of a break, so that way we can do the show. And as you know, every hour in the day is accounted for. The ER never closes, so that's where I am today. And so, pardon if there are noises in the background, a trauma code, or something that gets called on the intercom. I apologize for that, but we are a full service emergency department here, so
Like I
let's
always
roll
say,
with
I
it.
call you the super mom, ER doctor, kid school board member. But we want to welcome everyone to Live with Noelle and Carlos. We have a treat for you this evening. We have two of our former student school board representatives. So they're alums, and they are off into the grand land of college. And so we definitely want to check in on them. And they'll share some words of wisdom, as we're calling it, for our graduating class of seniors this year. And in our second half, we're going to have a colleague of yours, Dr. Gabriel, right?
That's correct, Dr. Arzubi Hughes. Yeah, she's a colleague with me in the emergency department, and she's also a NPS parent. So she's going to share some words about just promoting the vaccination and asking or answering any questions that some of our viewers might have.
Great. So let's not wait. I'm ready to bring these folks in. And so let's go ahead and start with ladies first. We're going to bring in Schaefer Shelton.
Hey, hello. Thank you guys for having me.
Glad to have you. And you are where? You're attending school where?
I'm at the University of Virginia. So I'm a rising third year there. Really daunting saying that. We actually had our graduation recently, and seeing people who I know be able to graduate was very, very scary, but exciting.
Can't believe it. It's been that long, how time flies since you graduated out of school. And so we're going to bring in our next guest with us, Mr. Personality himself, Mr. Jaelin Mitchell.
Hello.
Hello. And Jaelin, you are where?
I'm at George Mason University in Fairfax.
And Schaefer, I think you told us earlier you just declared what your major was, right?
And so I just declared an American politics major, and then I'm also minoring in religious studies with a focus in Christianity.
Great. And Jaelin, you're doing what?
I double major in music education and vocal performance, and then I minor in African American studies.
Nice. So Dr. Gabriel, I mean, we've got Jaelin and Schaefer. I mean, we call them the dynamic duo because literally that's...
Absolutely. I mean, I can remember when they did their little federal card video promoting students to bring back their federal cards. But the real reason that we really wanted to focus on our alumni this evening, and unfortunately we did invite our other two, Charity and Faith, but they had other events that they could not get out of for tonight. So Jaelin and Schaefer, we really appreciate you coming on. It's wonderful for you all to share with other graduates, or other students who will be graduating, any words of wisdom, things that you learned while you attended Norfolk Public Schools, lessons from your teachers, lessons from your classmates, specific classes that you took, and then things that you wish you might have actually had a little bit more exposure to while in Norfolk Public Schools. So I guess just to kick it off, how has this pandemic affected you in your current studies right now? And how do you feel that Norfolk Public Schools helped to prepare you for that?
Who will go first?
Well, I can speak on that a little bit. So just to give some perspective, Jaelin and I graduated and then started our first years of college. And then I can't speak for Jaelin, but as soon as I pretty much got comfortable, it was you're going home for 2 weeks and then you're staying home. And that was really tough for me because, like I said, I just started getting comfortable with my classes. It just friends, just basically living on my own for the first time. But I would say something that Norfolk Public Schools helps me in that situation, and then having this entire year be online, is be able to ask for help. It's okay to outreach and tell your professors. I mean, your professors, your advisors, your TAs are there to help you. And I think that's something I learned in Norfolk Public Schools. It was great because we had such a large body of teachers and staff that were there on call at any time and were really willing to help you to stay after if you needed it. I mean, I remember math teachers who would give me their home phone numbers and tell me that I could call them. So having that sense of comfort with your teachers, I think was something instilled in me. So when, most people don't think they're going to go through a pandemic. So it's important anytime you go to college to be comfortable with your professors, but especially in this time when it was very isolating, it was nice that I knew how to contact professors and feel comfortable contacting them.
What you doing?
Okay, I think for me, the main thing that NPS probably helped me with was adaptability. So being able to go from 100 to 100 on the other side of the spectrum, and it's kind of like, whoa, that happened really fast. So for more perspective, when we went back in the spring for the spring semester, in January, we heard these notions of something called a coronavirus. And we all thought that it was this mythical thing that was not going to really affect us. And then February came and we were like, okay, it's getting bad over there, but it's still not going to affect us. And then March came, spring break happened, and towards the end of spring break, they were like, George Mason sent us an email. It was like, don't come back. We're going to hold you for 2 weeks and then you can come back. Everything will be okay. And then literally, I would say 7 minutes later, they sent another email and said, just don't come back at all. We don't know what's happening. The world is flipping upside down. So, and the world did. And so I think if anything, NPS taught me adaptability because there have been other circumstances within NPS, within elementary, middle, and high school that we had to be adaptable about, whether it's a class change, whether it's the teacher is not here today, so somebody needs to take this on. Something in that nature. So we're adaptable. And I've really enjoyed this semester. I guess for me, it's a little more weird because I'm a music student. And so doing music online has been a challenge because it's kind of like, oh, my degree is a super spreader event. Right, I'm singing in both of my degrees, and so it's been a challenge. But again, because of NPS, I'm adaptable.
Great. And Jaelin, looks like you've got a shout out there from Blind Guy, his wife, and their life. Look at Jaelin making
y'all. That's really sweet. So Jaelin, you know that when you all were attending the board meetings, we had musical performances by a variety of students. And during the pandemic, Danielle Roby, she's actually retiring this year.
Yeah.
So now the musical performances have been brought in through either Zoom or pre-recorded, and they've had to do a lot of technology enhancements in order for the students to kind of pace and follow along.
Right.
Have you had to do that
yes.
with your transition?
Yes. So in the fall, no, let's go back to the spring 20. So I have a lot of my professors, of course, are older. And so technology is a thing that they didn't think that they would have to worry about. So watching them scramble on computers has been the time of my life. And then come fall, George Mason did a lot of training as to what they could do with technology and how they can use technology to help them go along with their curriculum. And then in this spring, and I'm trying to see if I have it near me. I don't think I do, but they came up with this small box, and we call it a jack streamer. And so what this jack streamer is, it's the small box that allows you to connect directly to the Ethernet cable of your home. And then from there, you can hear people from all over the world in this rehearsal space. So when I say my first time doing it was in the middle of February, it was like mind-changing because I hadn't created music with anybody since the beginning of the pandemic. And for me, that's kind of my life. And so you put on these headphones. I connected with people in California, in Oregon, in New York, in Maryland, in other parts of the state. So it's been a journey. But I think because of now what we know about the technology that we can use within our music community, it's gonna be great. Going to be very, very great.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, Jaelin, you know that a lot of your former classmates at the governor's school are also had to do a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
And it was, and I would say you'd be very proud to see your former classmates and what they were able to do have really propelled. Governor's school is all over.
Absolutely.
YouTube.
Absolutely. And I'm proud of what they've done currently. I've also had the opportunity, because of the pandemic, had the opportunity to go back and help the vocal department this semester. So I was going in on Tuesdays and Thursdays and helping them put together a few shows, teaching some of the remedial theory classes, doing lots of good stuff. So
Someone's calling you out there, Schaefer.
Yeah.
Well, I think they have the same thing at UVA, and schools around the world with the older teachers. But yeah, it's been a great time.
So Schaefer, what about you? As you probably heard in Norfolk Public Schools, the same thing happened to us. I mean, our students went home for spring break, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, you're gonna 2 weeks, and then the governor made his announcement, and like it was like home. And if you all remember when you were in school, maybe a few students had their own personal laptops. That was not something really, or an iPad. That wasn't something that we really had readily available. It's something I know that Dr. Gabriel had been championing for a one-to-one, but we had to go with packets. And then all of a sudden, we had to scramble. So how was that scramble for you? Even at the university level? I mean, did you see it?
Yeah, well, I was going to say also, I have a brother.
Okay.
Who's currently a junior at Norview. So when I was still home, or I would come home or my mom would call me. I mean, I definitely saw how at the high school level with him being there with the packets and everything like that. But then for myself on the university level, it was certainly a scramble. I mean, even just where I was, living, it was just about, I was there, and then it was like, okay, so yeah, you have about a week to pack everything up and we need you out of here. But you're also doing your classes at the same time. Oh, by the way, you need to choose classes for next year. And it was just a lot going on. But again, it was nice to have a community there to talk to, and just being really open with the professors and telling them when I was struggling. That helped a lot. But I will not lie to you. It was definitely tough. Because like Jaelin said, it was, you're going to be home for 2 weeks. And it was around the time for at least UVA's, it was our spring break. So we're like, oh, great, 2 more weeks of spring break. And then you weren't coming back. And I think it took me a while also to process that my first year of college was over. Because I was just, it never really got that goodbye. And it was interesting talking about the scramble when I just left a couple weeks ago to come home for the summer. It was tough because my friends and I realized we never had to say goodbye to each other. So that was an impact of the pandemic that we didn't really realize, was that we really did just drop everything and have to go home. And like, there was no goodbyes, there was no completion or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Right. For some of our seniors last year, they were pretty upset because they did not have the opportunity to do a senior prom and other events. And then with regards to graduation, the administration and the principals had to get really creative to try to do something that would make graduation very personal for them. And so luckily for you two, you were able to graduate with the typical senior type of events, walking across the stage, but for them it was difficult. And this year, we are excited that we will be able to have an in-person graduation ceremony at the Chartway Arena at Oldham University.
SB Ballard Stadium.
I'm sorry, is it at SB Ballard?
It's outside at the SB Ballard Stadium.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Hey, adaptability, right, Jaelin? Adaptability. So then with regards to, things that you had, things that you didn't have, what would you say to those seniors who maybe missed out on things like prom and a ring dance or pep rallies, things that would be a super spreader event? What would you say to them as far as, think about these things? There will be better things in the future. Are there other things that they should focus on?
I would say it's never too late to do all of those things. You can still have the ring dance. You can still have the prom. You can still have a mock graduation. And especially with things opening up, once you have the vaccine, we know that what the CDC says that you can be outside safely. So maybe you can gather your friends and say, hey, we didn't get to do this, but now here's our chance. Let's get a little stage together. Let's bring some lawn chairs outside and a little microphone and have our own graduation. Everybody in the neighborhood will love that. Or maybe even do that, have a neighborhood graduation and say, hey, everybody in the Brambleton community, come on out. We're going to celebrate all of our graduates from 2020 and 2021. No matter if that is a preschool graduation, if that is a moving on from elementary to middle to high, or you're graduating from high school. Let's have that. Let's build that community again that we've missed so much, and have this ceremony, this celebration. And it could be an all-day event. In the morning is graduation, in the evening is prom, in the afternoon it's a little carnival. I don't know. Do something fun with the community.
I was like, to give an example of that, Jaelin, I love that you brought that up. So one of the things that I missed out on was my sorority initiation, which was very meaningful to me. And so after this year, I mean, I was upset at the time, and then I'm like, it didn't really matter that much, but my friends knew how much it meant to me. And we have on our calendars a date when we come back in the fall to get on our white dresses and have a faux initiation, if you will. And definitely, I just want to echo everything that Jaelin said. First thing I would say to those seniors, really anyone who missed out on anything, your feelings are valid.
Absolutely.
That was something I had to that was going back to what was difficult when we were in the real heat of the pandemic. It was hard because I was feeling upset that I couldn't do things, but then I was like, Schaefer, there are people dying. Like that was in my mindset. People are getting sick. And while that's true, it's still important to just let yourself feel however you feel. But like exactly what Jaelin said, those events matter, but they mattered when it was going to be prom on that exact date, but it can still be prom if you do it a year later, a month later, whenever you do it. It's really what makes those events so important are the people who are there and the intention behind them. And you can have that in any time that you want. So,
So I'm going to put the two of you on the spot for just a second. And we, at the later half of our show, we're going to be speaking with one of my physician colleagues about the vaccination for COVID-19. And I actually just got my daughter vaccinated. She's 12. I was very excited to get her vaccinated. And I know that there's a lot of hesitance out there, and there's a lot of misinformation about the vaccine as well. And whatever your personal feelings are, I understand that, and I would not think anything different of you all. But let me just ask, did you all get vaccinated? And if you did, why? And if you chose not to, why? And would you recommend the vaccine for students? Because right now the Pfizer vaccine is eligible for ages 12 and up.
Sure. I can go. I mean, Schaefer?
Go ahead, Jaelin.
Okay. I have been fully vaccinated as of April the 21st. I say that because normally I am like petrified of needles. I don't do needles well. I don't like the sight of them. No. But when I got the email that I was able to get my first dose, I was like, yes, the moment I've been waiting for. To every student who is watching or who will watch this, get vaccinated immediately. It is important that you do so because you will want those events to happen again. Those events cannot happen if you do not do your part. You cannot rely or have faith that everybody else will do theirs, so you need to do yours. Get vaccinated. At first, I was one of those, oh, I'm not doing it. Nope, can't do it. And that a lot of the hesitancy came from, how do I word it? Came from previous administration worries that I had. And because I saw the current administration get vaccinated, as well as other prominent people in our communities, and even locally, I saw lots of people who I knew get vaccinated and they were okay. I felt much better about it. This is not a chip that they're going to insert in you and they will now rule the world. That is crazy. But I understand your hesitancy, just not if you think that it's a chip in you. So get vaccinated, get vaccinated, get vaccinated. We want to open back up. We want school to happen again. Not just quote unquote boring school, but we want fun school to happen again too. We cannot have fun. We cannot get back together until you get vaccinated.
So you heard the same thing, Jaelin, the chip. There's no chip.
There's no chip. No chip.
See, I love following you, Jaelin, because you just say everything perfectly, and I can just go, "Oh, I echo Jaelin. I echo Jaelin."
No.
But yeah, I'm vaccinated, and I was someone who was just I don't know. I just was always like, as soon as I saw it was available, I was like, I'm getting it. There's no question in my mind because, once again, like Jaelin said, I want to get back to normal things. I want to do things that are fun and know I'm doing it safely and just get back to somewhat normal life. And I think also it's important to, if you can get the vaccine, do, because if you can keep your community safe, if you have the ability to do that, my thing's always been, why not?
Right.
And so, yeah, as soon as it was available to me, I was like, yep, give me that vaccine, doctor. And no complications. Jaelin, any complications from your vaccine?
No.
You're feeling healthy. You're feeling good.
I feel great. I had a sore arm after both shots. That was it. But I get those with my regular flu vaccine too. So it was nothing, not normal. And I guess for me, the other portion of it is I know that George Mason will or wants to create a policy because our goal is to get 70% of our students back on campus. We are the largest university in the Commonwealth, and so because of that, it's important that we have a lot of people get vaccinated. We have this same amount of students that Norfolk Schools has in all of their schools combined. And so we started our huge vaccination effort inside of our biggest arena, which also it's about the size of the scope. And so we started by vaccinating our faculty and staff, and then we started vaccinating students. And now we've just allowed everybody from the Mason community to come in and to receive their vaccine. You have the choice of Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson. If you want the one and done, do it. If you don't, all right. I got Pfizer because that was what was offered at Military Circle that day. But yeah, I'm 5G.
That's good. So I'll pose a question to you guys. As you know, having sat there doing school board meetings and the awesome responsibilities that your 7 members and definitely you all adding input to. So when we came back after the summer, the board had to make a decision in regards to whether or not we would come back to in-person learning or remain virtual. And so, Norfolk Public Schools remained virtual. We were the last school division to remain virtual. And we had to kind of weigh a lot of different things, our community, our student populations and so forth. So it's just always interesting to hear perspectives. So what do you guys think about about the decision?
Schaefer?
I think so again, like I said before, my brother is a junior at Norview, so I've seen firsthand what NPS Online is like and what hybrid is like. And I think it's worked out well for him. You know, I think that I am someone who I was always an advocate of, as soon as you can get back into the classroom, do it. And so I just think, because I think the classroom environment is really important, but at the same time, and that was for me as a university student, but also I'm a 20-year-old who lives relatively on her own. I only had to worry about myself. So I do think it was good in the Norfolk public school system remaining online just a little bit longer, because there's just so many more aspects and actors at play when it comes to such a large school system. And I think, speaking to someone who was like me, so someone who really wanted to get back in the classroom, one con of just immediately jumping back in is there's so much that could go wrong for so little positive. So I saw it as, you know, yeah, it would be great to go back, but how much could go wrong? How many people could get sick? And so I think that was a good decision, just to remain a little bit longer online.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think for me, my concern at first was when Chesapeake decided to go back. I was concerned because they started with the younger elementary kids, and I have a friend who teaches in an elementary school over there. The thing with younger kids is they don't really care about germs or cooties or any of that. And so they're going to hug, they're going to take their mask off, they're going to trade masks, they're going to do all of these things. And I said, "Oh no, Norfolk, don't do it yet." And you all did not. And I said, "Yes, that's great. Just stay at home." And then the plans came out on how to phase everything back in. I think the plan that you all created was almost flawless, really, because you did it based on science and not based on feelings or pressures from the community. Because honestly, we all wanted our students to go back to school, right? We all wanted that in-person interaction. We all needed a break from them being at home all day, eating up all of our snacks. And we just wanted them to get back to school. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that everybody was safe, whether that is our students who are our precious cargo that we carry with us every day, whether that's our staff who we need because without them there is no school, or if it's our parents who, because of something that could have happened wrong at school, now our families are being affected by it. So I think because of the science that we followed, and now the vaccines, and now that we've seen the numbers go down tremendously, Norfolk made the right decision, and I'm glad you did.
Thank you so much. Good to hear that feedback. I mean, I know one thing out of both of you all, you always were straight shooters. You told us exactly what you felt about it.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that. Well, look, we're about to transition to the second half. Don't go anywhere. We're going to bring you out. We're going to bring in our next guest, and I'm going to let Dr. Gabriel introduce her colleague in just a moment here. But thanks, you guys. Great conversation. Look forward to having a little bit more.
Hi, Dr. Zubi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm wonderful. So for those who are viewing, I would like to take this opportunity. It is a great honor to welcome Dr. Michelle Arzubi Hughes to our show today. Dr. Hughes is a wonderfully acclaimed physician. She currently works in the emergency department at Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters. She has a very, very wide background. She obtained her doctor in osteopathic medicine and then went on to do fellowship in emergency medicine. But during that time, she also worked in the Peace Corps. She was offered, in her early days, she was offered to join the Olympic team for, was it crew?
Crew, yeah.
For crew.
Oh, wow.
She is fluent. She's fluent in Spanish. She has really helped when she came on board to the Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters. She's an extremely organized person. And so she made sure that we had a lot of our protocols and policies in place. And she helps a lot with our trauma team and has been an intricate part in helping to make CHKD actually a level 3 trauma center, a level 1 trauma center now. So Dr. Hughes and I have had many conversations. She does have children who attends Norfolk Public Schools, and we've spoken about the vaccine. We've spoken about the children that we've taken care of at CHKD. And the other thing that she's very heavily involved with is making sure that access to our Spanish-speaking community members, they have access to medical information, the vaccine, care for home, access to care. And so I wanted to bring her on to share her thoughts with that. And Dr. Hughes, if there's anything that I've left out, please, please share the information. But I guess if you want to just give us an overview perspective of, did you ever think that you would be working during a pandemic, and how has that kind of changed your mindset at this point in time, and what are your recommendations at this point?
Yeah. Number one, thank you for having me on. The honor is mine to be able to speak to all of you. So I really appreciate it. No, never in a million years as I was training through medical school, residency, fellowship, did I think we were going to encounter a new pandemic. We had the flu scare, I think it was in 2009, that we had a multitude of people die that year, and they started encouraging the flu vaccine after that. And you really saw a huge change. We'd still see flu, but not the acuity and not the gravity of the illness or the infections that we did in that year. And then if you think about it, the only thing in my lifetime, and I'm sort of aging myself, and I was young, the only new virus that came during my childhood was HIV. And we've come so far from the early 80s when it came out and to where we are now. So I'm doing that analogy because in the last year, we have come so far in knowing a bit more about COVID and how to treat it and getting an antiviral out there that we really have never seen that speed. And I will be honest, when I think in November, December, they said, okay, in December, healthcare workers will be allowed to get the vaccine. I'll tell you, I really questioned it, and I was a little scared because it happened so fast, and I've never seen that. And you read any historical studies on how vaccines come out, and that was really scary. And so I actually heard a podcast from it was the Adult Emergency Medicine World about how the vaccines were developed and how utilizing RNA technology, the effects of it really aren't as dangerous as some of the other vaccines we've had, in the last century. So listening to how it was developed, I said, you know what, I will be one of the first to do it, and that's fine. So mid to late December, I got my vaccine, had no side effect. And then I got my second vaccine January 6th, which is a day I will never forget because of what happened at that Capitol, because I was waiting for how I was going to have any effects, and the news was on. And really the side effects were minimal. So as things have progressed so rapidly to now, 12 to 16-year-olds can get vaccinated, I am all for it. And I have 7-year-old twins, and I said, can I put them in a study? Because I want them vaccinated. So seeing the effects of the vaccine, and you can even see it in terms of how many kids are getting COVID compared to the way it was last year or even in December. We had a huge flux in COVID cases probably in the summertime, June, July timeframe, when people are already getting antsy and they wanted to see family. And then again in December when it was pre-vaccine and people also wanted to see their families. So Thanksgiving was a huge get together for family members. The other thing we've seen, and you've heard about the MISC cases initially, I think it was the summertime when I saw my first few cases of MISC. Now, the great thing and the reason why I do pediatrics, and I love medicine in general, but kids bounce. They are amazing. And you look at all the studies, and fortunately, even the kids who got really sick, who had MISC, who needed to be in the intensive care unit, most of those have recovered. Thank God. Now, do I want my child to get sick? Absolutely not. So that's why if you can get vaccinated, I think you can see it in the news and in the data that there has been a huge decrease in COVID cases since the vaccine has started. So I kind of went on multiple tangents, but
no,
I think, the point is that I trust the vaccines. Are there side effects of the vaccines? Yes. I mean, and we're still learning. I think the underlying thing to all this, we don't know all there is to know about COVID. We probably won't know for another 2, 3, 4, 5 years. What are going to be the side effects? You have, last year we were seeing all these chronic cases. So people that were diagnosed with COVID didn't get really sick, but then had what we call sequelae or side effects that have continued, that are all of a sudden asthmatics, these marathon runners that can't walk a block because it affected their lungs. And those were, again, pre-vaccinated. But you see that, and I'd rather risk having this maybe some side effect from the COVID vaccine rather than having the side effect of COVID itself. The number of deaths that you see in India with the variants, those are all, I mean, it's scary. There's just no word for it.
Definitely. Well, the Virginia Department of Health actually sent out, and I'm going to share it now. They shared, why your adolescents, why get your adolescent vaccinated? And I'll be perfectly honest. So I have a niece and a nephew that are still in public schools. My nephew's 15, my niece is 8. And my nephew that's at Maury was like, Uncle C, I'm not getting this vaccine. And I was like, your uncle's gotten it. I'm fine. I'm not walking around with a third eye. And he was like, yeah. And so I was just like, look, just give it some time, and now that we're down at the 12-year-old, but my 8-year-old niece, she's like, Uncle C, when do I get my vaccine? She's ready to go. So I'm like, so I think I'm going to have to play that thing, if your little sister's ready to get this one, I don't know, but there are some things that they're saying here, particularly with this vaccine 12 to 15 that, that you'll protect, everyone else from getting COVID-19. It'll protect them. And that's been one of our strongest worries has been about, while we in Norfolk kept kids out of school so long, and that was the fear of not knowing. And then when you think about, being able to transmit potentially to vulnerable populations in our households, but now we're relaxing things. We're not, having masks, and it's going to make it safer for everybody. So the Department of Health has put these things out here. Do you stand by this? Or there are some additional things that may not be mentioned here that that can be benefits?
Yeah, I mean, well, one, I wanted to add that Moderna is about to apply for the emergency usage because they've done all their testing. So you might have 2 vaccines that are available. So I just had to put that because I just came out in the news today. Yeah, and that you mentioned the lifting of the mask mandate. I won't lie, I have a very difficult time, and I think most of my colleagues do as well. I think some are okay, but you have to understand that immunocompromised and people who have had are at risk for anaphylaxis some of them cannot be vaccinated. Any child under the age of 12 cannot be vaccinated. And there are kids that are immunocompromised that have other illnesses that are under 12 years of age that cannot be vaccinated. So I would love to trust everyone and the people that are unmasked have gotten vaccinated, so it decreases the risk, but we know the reality. And so I'm very tentative about this lifting of the mask mandate. Do I want to wear a mask the rest of my life? Absolutely not. And I mean, will I wear it every single day that I work? I was wearing a mask before COVID hit. So with every patient, so that won't be anything new, but to lift it in a public scenario where you may have kids that are immunocompromised, whether you know it or not, all I want people to do is be respectful, because the truth is, even though you are vaccinated, you can still carry COVID. And if you can carry COVID, that means you can transmit COVID. And if you transmit it to someone else who's vaccinated, no big deal. But if you transmit it to someone who's not vaccinated, who is immunocompromised, you have the increased risk of getting them sick and potentially hospitalizing them. So my biggest thing is just be cognizant and be respectful and of where you are and who you're around. So, and I think most of the people that have children that are immunocompromised, they're protecting themselves. But sometimes you don't realize that you're immunocompromised either, and you haven't been diagnosed. So just, I think that the biggest thing, and I think we've found, especially in the last year, is just respecting each other. And just coming back to the vaccine, I don't judge anyone that doesn't want to get vaccinated. I think it is scary. But I think as time goes by and you find out more information and you see how many side effects there are of the vaccine compared to how many there are to the illness itself, just take in the data and look for the right resources for the data. And Virginia Department of Health is a great place to source the data. And the CDC, even though I know people have questioned because they've gone back and forth, but that's because we just don't know enough about the illness and about COVID. And so I think people that aren't in the science community, aren't in the medical community, are kind of shocked about, like, why is CDC going back and forth? I said, well, if you think about it, it's kind of like the story of the egg. Eggs were good and then they were bad. You don't eat eggs and now you eat eggs again and they're good. So it's just the way, as you learn more, you get to, tell them like it is. And I think just be patient. What you see is not maybe 100% accurate because things may change, and just like the variants come up, but just take it in and do what you think is best and safest for not only you, but for the people around you. That's really all I ask. So if you don't want to get vaccinated, fine, but wear a mask, and if you don't want to, then just make sure you keep your distance. So that's fine. That's your choice not to wear a mask. Just.
It was really interesting because our practice has started offering vaccinations to our 12-year-old and up patients, and I had a mother and a son in the office, and the vaccine it's very fragile because once you open the bottle, you have a certain amount of hours until you can until it has to be discarded, and you only have a certain amount of doses. And so what we've tried to do was call patients ahead of time to say, do you want this? Then come on in and get scheduled, because it has to undergo a defrosting procedure, and you have to mix it properly. It's very important how to follow the instructions. But so we had 6 doses left over, and I was seeing some patients, and this mother and son were in, and I said, hey, we have a couple of extra doses of the vaccine. Would you like to get it? And the child looked at the mother and said, well, mommy, if I get the vaccine, will you get the vaccine? And it was just this emotional exchange that words could not describe. And the mother looked in her son's eyes and said, of course I'm going to get it. And she's had all this time to get the vaccine, but I think when she saw it through the lens of her child and being a role model for her child, she said, yes, we'll both get the vaccine. And it was, I've actually had quite a few parents who now, because their children are going to get the vaccine and they're excited to get the vaccine, then they are coming to get the vaccine as well. So it's kind of interesting.
No, I think there was an article in the New York Times maybe 2 or 3 days ago about this teenager who apparently his parents are anti-vaccine and really did not want them or their children to get vaccinated. And he was very adamant about getting it. And so I think legally he found a way to get vaccinated. And and I'm sorry, I don't know the details, but it was amazing because, these kids are smart. They are just taking in all the information. As hard as it is for me to accept the amount of social media and there's just constant stimulus from the outside, these kids are, I think, able to filter the right information. And I think the schools have done a great job and in education as well. So I think if they can change their parents, that's kudos to them, because I can imagine that's difficult.
We just got a question that came in, and it says, if the vaccine doesn't guarantee that you can give or receive the virus, then should we still take precautions with the mask or at least keep our distance?
So great question. So what it does is decrease. I mean, I will say it decreases the likelihood of you getting the definitely decreases the risk of you getting the actual illness. So it doesn't mean that you stop being a carrier. You know, but if you know that someone else is ill, if you know that everyone around you is vaccinated, you know, I think you can go back to kind of normal type of hugging and hanging out and at the restaurant and everything. But if you don't know, or you know for sure that someone has not been vaccinated, then yes, you should have a mask on and keep your distance from that person, that individual who is not vaccinated. And if you, and this is interesting because it's very, I hate comparing COVID to the flu, but in this sense, it's very similar. So the flu vaccine, it doesn't stop you from getting the flu. There would be times when you'd have the flu vaccine, you get a mild symptom of the flu, but you don't get as sick as you would if you hadn't gotten the flu vaccine. And so COVID, even though the vaccines are different in with their mechanism, but in terms of the effect, it's very similar. So you could get it. You may have zero symptoms. You may have some mild symptoms, but you won't get as sick or as ill as if you hadn't gotten the vaccine. I hope that helps answer that question.
You know, and I have to say that that's kind of like what I've been hearing in the respect that the vaccine in itself, and I guess the positive light of everything we've heard from the vaccines is that it's been keeping individuals from getting in the hospital.
Yes.
And if it can do that, then that means that it's keeping people from at least getting into the more critical stages of where they could potentially die. And that's the positive piece of it. And that's just like the flu vaccine. We get the flu vaccine, doesn't necessarily mean you can't get the flu, but it's going to keep you 9 out of 10 times from dying, which is the most important thing, you know, out of that. But I will say that I've added Schaefer and Jaelin back into the conversation. These are two student rep alums from the class of 2019. They are college students, and sometimes just as much as our little kids, when they get to college, sometimes folks don't know how to act on campus. So, but you guys haven't been on campus, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But,
yeah.
So I just wanted to also allow Dr. Hughes to mention some of the outreach that she's done with the Spanish community as well before we transition to kind of like our group thoughts. If you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
So even though I may not appear it, I'm actually half Argentinian. So my family originally from Argentina, and I grew up speaking Spanish. I went to Phoenix Children's where there was a huge Spanish community, and actually one of my clinics was purely in Spanish. And then fellowship in Kansas City, which actually had quite a few number of Spanish-speaking patients. But here, what I found, I don't see as many, but it's not that they're not here. The majority of our Spanish community, we do have some in Norfolk, but is really along the Eastern Shore. So over the years, I've noticed that this community is out there. And then I'm also a volunteer at the Clinica Esperanza, which is a community clinic for either people that are not insured or that need some help. So what I did during this COVID era, because I would see these parents come in very scared, speaking Spanish, not knowing any of the information because they didn't have that information in Spanish. So I think it was November or December, I started this video outreach, and it's Dr. Alexandra Leader, who's also one of our ED physicians, and she also speaks Spanish. So we have kind of a forum where we have a list of questions, and we talked about COVID first, and then
I told them to watch out for that.
So I made a video. It's about a 30-minute video, one of the COVID illness in general, and then a COVID vaccine. And then we also talk about burn prevention, and our next round is going to be asthma and summer safety. But as COVID information updates, I try to kind of integrate that into our video outreach. And my hope is, as more people get vaccinated, that we can actually have a public forum with a Spanish-speaking community so we can answer questions live. Yeah. And
Yeah, that's wonderful. And when we do have patients come into the emergency room, and even from our clinics, we have information that we give them in Spanish. So that way they have the instructions of kind of a summary of their visit. So that way they have some information to go off how to take care of a fever, how to take care of a upper respiratory infection. The outreach is important because they're present in the community, and to isolate them and to pretend that they're not there is just doing a disservice for the entire community, because we all, as we've all said in our conversations today, it takes everyone to do their part so that we can all get back to a sense of normalcy.
Definitely. So we're at 7:52. Definitely, if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to drop those in the comment section so that we can share those. But Jaelin, Schaefer, you guys have heard a whole lot. Did you anything you want to comment on? Agree? Like to support? This guys are sitting there. You guys are on mute. So.
I agree with everything. I mean, they're doctors. What can I not agree with? Like this is what they do, and this is, I think, why we as college students, I think, are so comfortable right now with everything going on, because they are doctors. They understand this kind of stuff. They knew about a lot of this stuff even before it became a global thing. People have been studying these viruses and just viruses in general for a long time. So just trust the science behind it, and trust the scientists.
Yeah, just to echo the same thing, everyone wants to go back to normal, and the only way we can really get there is if we start getting the vaccinations rolling out and just following what the doctors say.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add some of the most difficult conversations that I've had with individuals, because the test to check to see if you have the coronavirus, which is actually we call it the severe acute respiratory virus. There's a couple of other coronaviruses that are out there, and they're older viruses. And they cause the common cold, runny nose, a low-grade fever, cough, congestion. Oh, hold on a second. And so when you wear a mask, you're not just protecting individuals from the virus that causes COVID-19, but you're also protecting everyone else from the other viruses that are still out there.
Exactly.
That can still be transmitted. And when we tell individuals, okay, well, your test came back and it's not positive for the virus that causes COVID-19, but you actually have a coronavirus, it's just an older one, there's a little bit of education that has to take place there. But I think this has just been a tremendous learning process for everyone. I think everyone has caught up on their science because of the pandemic, because they're learning a little bit more about how vaccines work, how viruses work, how viruses are spread. People know about contact precautions and things like that. So it's a good thing. And I think that, at least from a school board, a member perspective, keeping our staff safe and comfortable in a teaching environment has been very important, because Jaelin, you said it, if we don't have our teachers, we can't have teaching and learning. And we want them to feel as safe and comfortable as possible. So this has just been a year of an incredible learning experience for us all.
Right.
Yeah. And there will probably be more learning. And I think that's the thing, is just to don't close your mind to it. Don't get frustrated as things change, because that's also the beauty for us of science, because things do change and our body changes in response to it, and just as the environment changes to it. So I know it's frustrating, because everyone feels like the CDC is changing back and forth, but they're just learning now as well. And remember, we've been learning about the flu since 1912. We've had a century, and we're still screwing it up.
Right.
So, it is, just be patient. It's not that black and white as much as we would like it to be, so.
Well, appreciate you all. Great information, sharing, and Jaelin, Schaefer, we definitely appreciate you guys coming back. I know that you are technically, I guess, you guys are on your summer break. So taking some time out to share with your future NPS alum who are about to graduate next year. And we thank you so much, Dr. I want to make sure it's Arzubi Hughes, right?
Yeah, and you just call me Zuby because that's my nickname.
I hardly ever call her Dr. Arzubi.
We appreciate you.
So if you see the license plate Dr. Zuby, that's me because that's
Got it. Well, we appreciate you, and
Thank
I know that our superintendent is working with her team, and we have to say that as board members, we make decisions, but really it's the staff members and our administration who are really working tirelessly to come up with the plans and listening. We've got to listen to make a decision there. But I love working with my colleague here, Dr. Gabriel, and I was like, you're the doc. I'm gonna listen to the science, and we have to make some tough decisions there. But we're excited about the opportunity of getting back to some new normalcy. And we definitely want to encourage those parents. We'll put more information in the comment section for you to be able to check out more about the benefits and some of the potential side effects down there. But I think that we can all agree in some respect that the benefits definitely outweigh any of the potential side effects or the outliers that might be there. So I appreciate you all. And with that, I know Dr. Gabriel's got to get back, and we thank you all. You have your evenings there. And I encourage anyone else, definitely check out, place any comments there if you're looking at this. Definitely feel free to follow Dr. Gabriel and myself there. Thank you for the great topics. Congratulations to the young people on the panel and all their endeavors. Thank you all.
Thank you again for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Well, you guys have a great evening.
Good night.
Good night.